We are in the last four of the Champions League. Arsenal Football Club are in the semi-finals. Let that sink in. Welcome to James Arsenal Analysis. I am James. And tonight, we break it all down. Every moment, every performance, every decision, and every reason why this club is now 90 minutes away from a Champions League final. Before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, like this video, and stay until the very end, because I have got a full tactical breakdown, player ratings analysis, and my honest thoughts on what comes next against Atletico Madrid. This is going to be a long one, trust me. You want to stay? Right, let us get into it. Wednesday night at the Emirates, the air was heavy with expectation. After the disappointment of losing to Bournemouth on Saturday, the Arsenal faithful needed something to hold on to. They needed a response. They needed their club to show up on the grandest stage, and the context could not have been clearer. One goal ahead from the first leg in Lisbon. One Kai Havertz strike standing between Arsenal and the Champions League semi-finals. Mikel Arteta named a side that reflected both the squad's depth and its injury reality. Bukayo Saka absent. Martin Odegaard absent. Jurrien Timber absent. Mikel Merino absent. Ricardo Calafiori absent. 5 key players unavailable, and yet Arsenal stood firm. That alone tells you something about the character of this group and the depth that this summer's recruitment has provided. Sporting CP arrived at the Emirates as Portuguese champions, managed by Rui Borges, a side with genuine quality, technically disciplined, well-organised, and motivated by the unique emotional charge of facing the club that took their greatest asset away from them in the summer. Victor Gyökeres, the man who scored goal after goal in a green and white shirt, now pulled on the red and white, and they wanted revenge. What followed was one of those European nights that will not live long in the memory for its entertainment value, but will be remembered forever for its outcome. Arsenal started with real intensity. Within the opening minutes, it was clear that Eberechi Eze had arrived in this game, ready to be the difference maker. The man Arteta brought in from Crystal Palace for over £60 million in the summer has had a complicated season, injuries disrupting his rhythm, questions about his consistency. But on this night, in the first 45 minutes, he was electric. Everything positive that Arsenal produced in the first half came through Eze. His movement off the ball was intelligent. His touch was sharp. He found pockets of space between Sporting's midfield and defensive lines and repeatedly caused problems. When Sporting's defenders backed off, he drove forward. When they pressed, he slipped passes through. He was the one Arsenal player who looked genuinely threatening, and his partnership with the midfield trio behind him gave Arsenal a platform to build on. Martin Zubimendi was the standout performer of the evening, and I want to spend real time on him because he deserves it. When Arsenal signed the Spanish midfielder from Real Sociedad in the summer for close to £56 million, expectations were enormous. He had been one of the most sought-after midfielders in Europe. Real Madrid had tried to sign him. The pressure was real, and for parts of this season, if we are being completely honest, he has not always looked like the player we thought we were getting. There have been performances where he has looked a step slow, a touch off, not quite at the level his reputation demanded. Not on Wednesday night. Zubimendi was back to his absolute best. In the first half especially, he covered ground relentlessly, broke up Sporting's attempts to build through the middle, and crucially, he drove forward. That is something we have not seen enough of from him this season. He did not just sit and shield. He pressed, he carried the ball, he linked play, he looked sharp, hungry, and dominant. If that Zubimendi shows up consistently between now and the end of the season, Arsenal become a genuinely frightening prospect for anyone. Declan Rice, as always, was the engine. He took a serious whack to the ankle early on, and there was a moment where you could see him grimacing, adjusting, trying to run it off. For a lesser player, that might have been the moment to come off. Rice is not a lesser player. He dusted himself down, found his rhythm, and produced another dependable professional display. The man is simply one of the best midfielders in world football. Every single week, he competes, he covers, he organises, and he protects the back four. He does it without fuss and without fanfare. And I think we sometimes take it for granted. We should not. Now, the front three. This is where I have to be honest with you, because that is what this channel is built on, honesty. Victor Gyökeres was poor. I take no pleasure in saying that. He is an Arsenal player. I want him to succeed. He is our top scorer this season, with 15 goals across all competitions, and his signing was a statement of intent from this club. But on Wednesday night, facing the club where he built his reputation, the club that sold him, the club whose supporters perhaps expected him to run riot, he was anonymous. His touch let him down repeatedly. His hold-up play, which can be so effective, was absent. He struggled to bring others into the game, misread crosses, and found himself in isolated positions. He was replaced before the hour mark, and while that will sting, no professional wants to be taken off in a Champions League quarter-final. It was the right call from Arteta. You could see from his body language that it was not his night. He will have better ones, but this was not it. Noni Madueke on the right side was equally difficult to watch. He had space. That is the part that frustrates me most. Sporting gave him room to operate on several occasions, and he simply could not take advantage. His touch was off, his decision-making was slow, and he failed to provide the threat that his quality should guarantee. Madueke is a player with enormous potential, and he has shown flashes of genuine brilliance since joining from Chelsea in the summer. But performances like this one are why there are still question marks around his consistency. Gabriel Martinelli, to his credit, worked the hardest of the three. He chased, pressed, and contributed defensively. But even he could not produce the killer moment or the decisive touch that Arsenal needed to make the night more comfortable. Then came the moment that gave Sporting hope. Right at the end of the first half, Jenny Katamo found himself in a dangerous position and struck the post. That sound, the ball rattling off the woodwork, sent a ripple of anxiety through the Emirates. Had Sporting scored there, everything changes. The aggregate level, the momentum, the entire dynamic of the tie. But the post saved Arsenal, and they went into the break level on the night, ahead on aggregate and needing one more half of football. Arteta made the decisive change at half-time in terms of personnel shifts during the game, and as the second half unfolded, he managed his substitutions intelligently. Kai Havertz came on for Gyökeres, and while he did not test the Sporting goalkeeper directly, he brought composure and a different kind of threat. He linked well, held the ball, and gave Arsenal a focal point that had been missing. Max Daumann came on and immediately lifted the Emirates. There is something about this young man that the crowd responds to instinctively. He is fearless, energetic, and plays without the weight of expectation that heavier contracts bring. For a player who became the youngest goalscorer in Premier League history earlier in the season, he carries himself with a maturity that belies his age. When he got the ball, he tried to make things happen. On this occasion, the final product was not quite there, but his impact on the atmosphere was undeniable. Leandro Trossard came on late and struck the post, another heart-in-mouth moment. But that was as close as either side came to breaking the deadlock. Gabriel Jesus, introduced in the closing stages, had one excellent run into the box and came close to squeezing a shot in at the near post. Had that gone in, it would have been the perfect end to the evening. But Arsenal did not need it, and ultimately, that is the point. The defence was outstanding. William Saliba was a colossus composed under pressure, authoritative in the air, and commanding in his reading of the game. He dealt with every threat Sporting could offer. Gabriel Magalhaes, alongside him, was equally dominant. The big Brazilian, who signed a new long-term contract with the club last summer, continues to be one of the most underrated centre-backs in European football. Physically imposing, technically assured, and with a genuine leader's presence, he is absolutely central to everything Arteta is building. Christian Mosquera, brought in at right back in place of Ben White, was solid if unspectacular. His defensive work was reliable, his positioning was intelligent, and while his contribution going forward was limited, on a night where the priority was protection and control, he did exactly what was asked of him. The 21-year-old signed from Valencia in the summer has developed well this season and continues to grow into the demands of top-level European football. And Piero Hincapié, what a sight it was to see him back in the starting 11. The Ecuadorian defender, signed on loan from Bayer Leverkusen with an option to purchase in the summer, has been a real positive addition to this squad. His injury concern during the March international break had worried everyone, and seeing him return here, looking fit, mobile, and capable of getting up and down the left side with energy, was genuinely encouraging. His presence gives Arteta options and gives the backline a different dynamic. He looked like himself again. That matters enormously heading into the semi-finals. David Raya, in goal, had a relatively quiet night in terms of shot stopping, but his distribution and command of his area were, for the most part, composed. One risky pass in the first half raised eyebrows, but he got away with it, and the overall impression was of a goalkeeper who was in control of his environment. Let me step back from the individual performances for a moment and look at what happened on Wednesday night in its full context. Arsenal Football Club without Bukayo Saka, without Martin Odegaard, without Jurrien Timber, without Mikel Merino, without Ricardo Calafiori, 5 first-team players unavailable, 5 players who, when fit, would walk into almost any starting 11 in Europe, and they held a Portuguese champion side scoreless for 90 minutes at the Emirates, protecting a 1-goal aggregate advantage and sealing a place in the Champions League semi-finals for the 2nd consecutive season. That is not nothing. That is actually remarkable. The 2024-25 season ended in heartbreak at the semi-final stage. Arsenal were eliminated by Paris Saint-Germain after a 3-1 aggregate defeat. That hurt. It hurt deeply. But the lessons were learned. The squad was rebuilt with purpose and investment. And here we are again in the last 4, with a different group, a deeper squad, and a genuine belief that this time could be different. The semi-final draw has given Arsenal Atletico Madrid. Let that marinate. Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid. The masters of structure, organisation and tactical ruthlessness. A side that eliminated Barcelona in the quarter-finals with a 3-2 aggregate victory. A side built on defensive solidity, transitional danger and the ability to make matches ugly when they need to. This is in every sense a different challenge to anything Arsenal have faced in this competition so far. Arsenal already beat Atletico Madrid in the league phase earlier in the season, a 4-0 victory at the Emirates that will have sent a message across Europe. But Atletico Madrid in a 2-legged knockout tie is a completely different proposition. Simeone's teams raise their game for these moments. They are built for them. And Arsenal will need to find solutions that they did not need against Sporting or in their stunning 5-1 aggregate victory over Real Madrid in the round of 16. The format works in Arsenal's favour in one key sense. As the higher-seeded team, they play the second leg at home. The Emirates on a Champions League knockout night with a place in the final at stake. If Arsenal can be compact and disciplined in the first leg away at the Metropolitano, and then bring Atletico back to the Emirates, needing a result, that is a scenario this squad and this stadium are built for. Mikel Arteta gets a 7 out of 10 from goal in the player ratings, and I think that is fair. His substitutions improved the team as the second half progressed. His tactical setup was defensively disciplined and gave Arsenal the platform to control without overextending. But Arteta knows, and he will have said as much in the dressing room, that the performances from the forwards in the starting 11 are not yet at the level required for the Atletico tie. Victor Gyökeres needs to rediscover his form. Noni Madueke needs to find his consistency. The front line, so potent on their day, needs to fire when it matters most. Arteta has a big call to make on Sunday against Manchester City in the Premier League. With the Champions League semi-final looming on the horizon, squad management becomes critical. Who starts? Who rests? How much risk does he take with players like Rice, who took that ankle knock? How does he get Hincapie more match sharpness without overloading him? These are the decisions that separate good managers from great ones. I believe Arteta is a great one. And I believe that between now and the end of this season, we are going to see exactly why. I want to come back to Victor Gyökeres one more time because I think it is important that we do not overreact to one difficult night. This is a player who has scored 15 goals in all competitions this season in his first year at Arsenal after joining from Sporting CP. He has been the difference in multiple matches. He is a physical presence, a relentless runner, and a striker who has the capacity to score goals from nothing. Wednesday night was painful for him, both physically and psychologically. Facing your former club is never easy. There is emotion involved, whether a player admits it or not. The crowd at the Emirates expected fireworks from the man who terrorised defences in Lisbon, and when they did not come, the frustration was palpable. But I am asking you to hold that context in your mind. One poor performance does not erase 15 goals. It does not erase what he brings to this team on the right night. What he needs now is to reset, to respond, and to remind everyone, including himself, what he is capable of. The Atletico Madrid tie will come soon enough, and when it does, Arsenal will need their striker at his very best. I cannot close this video without giving proper respect to Max Daumann. He became the youngest goal scorer in Premier League history earlier this season. He is a product of Arsenal's academy. He represents everything that the club aspires to be. Technically accomplished, tactically aware, and developed with patience and care. Every time he steps onto that pitch, the Emirates rises. And that connection between a young homegrown player and a football crowd is one of the most powerful things in the sport. He is not yet ready to be a regular starter in the Champions League. That is not a criticism. It is simply a reality of his age and development stage. But he is getting closer. And watching him on Wednesday night, seeing the confidence with which he received the ball, the directness of his running, the fearlessness of his decision-making, you could see a player who belongs at this level. In the months and years ahead, Max Dowman is going to be a very important Arsenal player. Mark my words, Arsenal are in the Champions League semi-finals. The injuries are real. The squad depth has been tested. The performances have not always been perfect. But this team keeps finding a way. Kai Havertz scored the goal in Lisbon that started this journey through to the Final Four. David Raya, William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes and their defensive colleagues have kept the opposition at bay time after time. Martin Zubimendi delivered his best performance in an Arsenal shirt on Wednesday night. Eberechi Eze has shown in glimpses exactly why this club fought so hard to sign him. And Mikel Arteta continues to prove, week after week, that this is a team being built the right way. Atletico Madrid stands between Arsenal and a Champions League final. That is the mountain ahead. But tonight, just for tonight, let us appreciate the view from where we are standing. The Gunners are in the semi-finals, 2 legs away from the biggest club final in world football, and I will be here every step of the way covering it for you. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button right now. Subscribe if you have not already, because the next few weeks are going to be the biggest of this Arsenal season, and you do not want to miss a single second of the coverage. Turn on notifications and drop your comments below. I want to know your thoughts on Gyökeres, on Zubimendi's performance, on how you see the Atletico tie playing out. Let us talk, let us debate. That is what this community is for. I am James. This has been James Arsenal Analysis. Come on, you Gunners.